At Aulani Resort, time moves perfectly slow.
It was a cold winter's morning on the island of Sodor. The wind was bitter and the ground hard with frost. Thomas and Percy were cold and cross. "All I want is a warm boiler," huffed Thomas. "Firelighter knows that. He's late." "He's not late," replied Percy. "This weather woke us up early." Gusts of wind swirled round the shed, tossing flakes of snow toward Thomas. Then they swooshed round Percy, too. "Why don't we talk about something else?" shivered Percy. "Yes," replied Thomas, "like how silly we'll look when our funnels turn into icicles." "That's not funny. Maybe we'll stop feeling cold if we talk about warm things, like sunshine and steam." "And firelighters," muttered Thomas. "Scarves," continued Percy. "Scarves?" laughed Thomas. "That's what you need, Percy, a woolly scarf round your funnel." Thomas was only teasing, but Percy thought happily about scarves until the firelighter came. Sir Topham Hatt was enjoying hot porridge for breakfast. He was looking forward to taking important visitors on a tour of the railway and had pressed his special trousers. "I shall put them in my trunk," Sir Topham Hatt said to his wife, "and change into them just before the photographs are taken." Then he set off to catch his train. Percy was now working hard. His fire was burning nicely, and he had plenty of steam, but he still thought about scarves. He saw them everywhere he went. "My funnel's cold, my funnel's cold," he puffed. "I want a scarf, I want a scarf." "Rubbish, Percy," said Henry. "Engines don't wear scarves." "Engines with proper funnels do," replied Percy. "You've only got a small one." Before Henry could answer, Percy puffed away. Henry snorted. He was looking forward to pulling the special train. It was time for the photographs. Everyone was excited. Sir Topham Hatt was waiting on the platform for his trousers. They were in a trunk amongst a big load of baggage. The porters were taking the baggage trolley across the line. They were walking backwards to see that nothing fell off. Percy was still being cheeky. His driver always shut off steam just outside the station. Percy wanted to surprise the coaches by coming in as quietly as he could. But the porters didn't hear him either. Percy gave them such a fright that boxes and bags burst everywhere. "Oh!" groaned Percy. Sticky streams of jam trickled down Percy's face. A top hat hung on his lamp iron. Worst of all, a pair of trousers coiled lovingly around his funnel. Everyone was very angry. Sir Topham Hatt seized the top hat. "Mine," he said. "Percy, look at this." "Yes, sir. I am, sir." "My best trousers, too." "Yes, sir. Please, sir." "We must pay the passengers for their spoiled clothes, and my trousers are ruined. I hope this will teach you not to play tricks with the coaches." Percy went off to the yard. He felt very silly. On the way, he met James. "Hello, Percy. So you found a scarf, eh? But legs go in trousers, not funnels." And he puffed away to tell Henry the news. That evening, Thomas and Percy were resting in the shed. Percy's driver had taken away the trousers and given Percy a good rub-down. "Firelighters promised to come early tomorrow," said Thomas. Henry arrived. He'd enjoyed taking the visitors around and now felt sorry for Percy, too. "Driver says the weather will be warmer tomorrow. You won't need a scarf, Percy." "Certainly not," replied Percy. "Engines don't need scarves. Engines need warm boilers. Everyone knows that."
Percy Harper Chevy. Come see the difference.
Eventually, even the Fat Controller gave up. "We shall take away your rails," he said, "and leave you here for always and always and always." There watching him was the Fat Controller. "What are you doing here, Thomas?" he asked. "I brought Edward's trucks," Thomas answered. "Why did you come so fast?" "I didn't mean to. I was pushed," said Thomas. "You've got a lot to learn about trucks then, little Thomas. After pushing them about here for a few weeks, you'll know almost as much about them as Edward. Then you'll be a really useful engine." Next morning, the Fat Controller spoke severely to him. "If you can't behave, I shall take away your red coat and have you painted blue." James didn't like that at all. Meanwhile, all the passengers hurried to the booking office. "We want our money back," they shouted. But the Fat Controller climbed on a trolley and blew the guard's whistle, so loudly that they all stopped to look at him. Then he promised them a new train at once. He climbed up and peered in. Then he came down. "Excuse me, sir. Please look in the tank and tell me what you see." "Certainly, Inspector," replied the Fat Controller. He clambered up, looked in, and nearly fell off in surprise. "Inspector," he whispered, "can you see fish?" "Gracious goodness me, how did the fish get there, driver?" "We must have fished them from the river with our bucket," replied Thomas's driver. "Well, Thomas, so you and your driver have been fishing, but fish don't suit you. We must get them out." They all took turns at fishing in Thomas's tank, while the Fat Controller looked on and told them how to do it. He moved slowly forward to jam the table, but he couldn't stop himself and slithered into a ditch. "Ooh!" she hissed. "Get me out! Get me out!" "Not a hope," said his driver and fireman. "You're stuck, you silly great engine. Don't you understand that?" They telephoned the Fat Controller. So Gordon didn't want to take the special train and ran into a ditch. "What's that you say? The special's waiting? Tell Edward to take it, please. And Gordon? Oh, leave him where he is. We haven't time to bother with him now,"
said Cranky meekly. "You've blown the main now, matey," said Salty. The engines were trapped. "You're gonna get into trouble," sang Bill and Ben. Sir Topham Hatt was in his office being measured for a new suit. When he heard the news, he left immediately for the docks. Sir Topham Hatt knew that any delay at the docks could cause trouble. "You have made a terrible mess, Cranky," he said sternly. "I'm sorry, sir," Cranky whispered. "You engines will have to stay here tonight until Harvey clears up this mess in the morning." Cranky's heart sank as Salty uttered those fateful words. "That reminds me of a story." After Percy was lowered back onto the ground, the manager was very cross. "You have caused confusion and delay," he said. "I'll have to report this to Sir Topham Hatt." That night, Sir Topham Hatt spoke severely to Percy. "I'm very disappointed in you, Percy," he said. "You know it's against the rules to go on to the tipper's loading ramp." "Sorry, sir," Percy said sadly, "but it wasn't my fault. It's because those diesels made me a middle engine." "Nevertheless, you will shunt freight cars in the yards until I can get to the bottom of this." "Ha!" said James. Help! "Grease and oil," Diesel sulked, as the trucks laughed and laughed. Sir Topham Hatt looked down crossly at Diesel. "I thought you would be a proper dockyard diesel, but I was wrong," he said. "Can you make up for lost time, Henry?" "Oh, yes, sir," Henry replied happily. One day, Rusty returned late to the quarry. Sir Topham Hatt was cross. "Sorry, sir," Rusty's driver said. "We were helping Rheneas and Skarloey." "I know you like helping Rheneas and Skarloey, but their line is in bad condition. It takes too much of your time," said Sir Topham Hatt. "I am going to shut it down." Rusty was upset. But what will